All right. As I said in the riff in the Wall Street Journal lead, both Kevins will end the Fed's deep state. All right. That is Kevin Hassett and Kevin Warsh. Joining us now is Steve Forbes, Forbes Media Chairman, Editor-in-Chief, and E.J. Antoni, Heritage Foundation Chief Economist and Unleashed Prosperity Senior Fellow. Gentlemen, welcome. E.J., you're the furthest away. Or actually, you're both pretty far away due to technical things going on. Steve Forbes, you're a good sport. We're going to use candles to help you out. E.J., I think both Kevins are very smart, brilliant people. They're both very good friends of mine. I'm not choosing between the two. They both would serve the country well. But the job here, E.J., and this is where I want to go, the job here is to clean out the Fed's deep state. That includes all these board members of the Board of Governors that were appointed by Obama and Biden. That includes the Reserve Bank presidents who were appointed by Obama and Biden, the majority of them. And that includes the staff economists on the Federal Reserve Board with their, antediluvian models that never work and so forth, and also the economists around the system. In other words, total perestroika, EJ. That's what I want to see. They have got to totally... This is, there's a great story out there that the CIA and the FBI are interviewing a lot of past people on criminal investigations. I'm not saying the Fed is should be criminally investigated, but I'm saying it ought to be changed. Big time. And I think both of these Kevins would do it. All right? What says you?
Well, Larry, I think you're 100% right, and I think you nailed it in the rift. The Fed is essentially a corrupt institution from top to bottom, and virtually everybody has to go. And so many of these so-called economists, not only are their models wrong, but instead of spending time to work on those models, Larry, they instead waste their time writing papers about DEI and ESG and other such garbage. So again, all of these folks have to go. They are not monetary scientists. They are little more than political pundits.
That's, Steve Forbes, that's a harsh indictment, but I don't think he's wrong, or at least I don't think he's far wrong. And my point with the two Kevins, Kevin Warsh and Kevin Hassett, those guys have been around the block. They've been in and out of government. Both of them worked for the Fed. Kevin Warsh was a governor. Kevin Hassett was a senior researcher and so forth. They got to go head to head, toe to toe, if they're put into place as chair, head to head and toe to toe with the economists and the Reserve Bank presidents in order to effect the kind of perestroika and top to bottom change that I'm looking for.
Well, we have to see whether they can have a lot of those economists do something useful for humanity, like becoming Uber drivers. I don't know what you can do in terms of replacing them. But in terms of the Fed governors and the like, well, I think what Secretary of the Treasury Bessent and the President have to do is start laying the intellectual foundation why the way the Fed operates is all wrong. Their philosophy is all wrong. Prosperity does not cause inflation. The Fed has a really anti-growth bias, as you well know, and their focus should be not on trying to manipulate the economy. That did not work with the Soviet Union, and the Fed's made a hash of it here. They should focus on having a stable value for the dollar, what you would call king dollar. And that's what there should be their sole focus. So on this thing on tariffs, the chairman mouths off about tariffs. There's nothing the Fed can do about the effects of tariffs. And the idea that if prices do go up, just for argument's sake, there's nothing the Fed can do about it. So what do they want to do? They want to depress the economy because they don't like the effect of tariffs. That's not their business. Their business is one thing only, stable value for the dollar, so we can trust the dollar again. How about that?
How about that? I would, stable value. Price stability is the best tonic for economic growth. Growth doesn't cause inflation. Bad inflation causes a collapse in the economy. EJ, to Steve's point, though, I think it's very interesting. And it's not personal, by the way. None of this is personal. But I worry, let me rephrase that. I believe the Fed's staff, particularly the economists, they're giving Jay Powell his talking points for his various speeches and press conferences where he is opposing President Trump's policies. He is directly standing up on platforms and overseas. He is opposing Trump's policies. That includes, by the way, the tariff issue and lack of inflation, which is not the Fed's remit, as Steve Forbes has just said. They have nothing to do with that. But in general, I'm arguing that the board staff and others are giving Jay Powell, who's not an expert in monetary policy and never would, giving him the ammo to actually argue publicly against the elected president's economic growth policies. What say you on that one, EJ?
Larry, again, I think you're spot on here. It's not as if everything that Powell is saying is coming from him himself. As you pointed out, he's not an economist. He's an attorney. And what we've essentially seen out of this huge left-leaning bias from the Federal Reserve are left-leaning talking points. You know, when Powell was asked during the Biden administration, Mr. Chairman, and this was congressional testimony, Mr. Chairman, all of this government spending, is this making your job harder? Is this going to cause inflation? And of course, he refused to comment, saying that's a fiscal matter, it's not monetary. Fast forward to today, and all of a sudden, he feels free to mouth off about everything fiscal related because it's President Trump.
That's a great point. EJ, Antoni, that's a great point. We've run over, but Steve Forbes, are you worried about the high price of gold, Steve?
Yes, I am, and I'm worried about the weakness of the dollar against other currencies. That gets to the basic point. The dollar is wobbly because the Federal Reserve is mucking things up. And there are a lot of things they can do. Stop paying interest on the bank reserves, focus on the stable value for the dollar, and leave the economy alone. But if they just announced that they're going to have us look for a stable value for the dollar, I think you'd see a real boom in the bond market. There's no reason why, Larry, short-term interest rates like 3-month treasuries, treasury bills, 6-month treasury bills are around 4.3%. That hurts the economy. Stop it, you guys.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, either of the Kevins will do a much better job. That's where I'm coming out on this. Steve Forbes, thank you. EJ Antoni, thank you.